D&D Dungeon Masters of Reddit, what is the most useless magical item you've ever given your party and how did they use it? In my last campaign my player got a hammer that shoots confetti and makes a party blow a sound on crits. A dramatic moment happened where he had to put his pet owl bear down, as it was morphing into a monstrosity because of the BBEG. Because the creature was on the ground morphing he auto crit. The beast lies there, writhing in pain trying to hold onto its own self for as long as possible. You lift your hammer solemnly in the air, feeling the weight of not only the weapon, but the situation. As you bring it down, you feel the flesh give as the skull has been pulverized from the transformation. The sound of teeth clacks against the ground echoing in the room around you. The party looks at the ground and a moment of silence consumes you all. Phew. This is truly wonderful. +3 Sword of Edward Tumbleton Slaying. Edward Tumbleton was a tailor in a nearby city. They discovered a sword that was very effective at killing him. Just him. Neither the party, nor any other person on the planet had any reason to kill the guy. The party ended up killing him by blowing up his shop with a fireball. The sword was never used. Poor Edward Tumbleton. I think at some point, he got on the bad side of an artificer who told him, "I have a sword with your name on it," and it turned out to be true. Gave my party a sash of swimming, sea, retexture aquatic cummerbund. They put it on the donkey pulling their wagon and promptly forgot about it. I haven't though. 2 years later, I haven't. Mug of pee warm chongo. Turn any liquid that enters its internal volume into, you guessed it, pee warm chongo. They threw it in the sea, and yes, while it would eventually produce an infinite amount of PWC, it didn't produce it faster than the various flora and fauna of the sea could consume it as current carried it away. The toils of all that be. Help not the primal fault. Rivers flow into the sea, yet still the sea is salt. I used to love making magical items that were off the wall. I felt like the game's items didn't reflect the silly stuff someone would make if they had the time and manic attention to detail. There's a devil called a chitin. It's a chain wrapped, chain swinging, freaky pain loving hellraiser type. My party fought one in a dungeon. He's wearing a unique amulet that makes chain. You place a piece of chain on the surface, and the amulet starts slowly, magically, generating a chain of the same dimensions. It only makes 10 featuring a day, but over time you could make a few gold selling mundane chain. I just thought it was thematic and interesting. The party left the dungeon, went to town, found a smith, and poured their entire life savings into making 2 links of solid gold chain that would make Flavor Flav weep. And I wept. What a fool I was. Sounds like the party is about to become the target of every group of thieves and bandits in the land. I gave one of my players a delicious magical sandwich that regenerated itself each day as long as you didn't eat the crust. It didn't offer any benefits when you ate it. It was just an infinite sandwich. That sandwich became a character in and of itself. The amount of time that was spent talking about the sandwich, its contents, the flavor, etc. was crazy. Every player described how their character would ogle the sandwich whenever it was brought out. That character is gone for now, but she kept that sandwich right up until retirement. She spends her time in Candlekeep Library, devouring knowledge and also the sandwich. A rope that couldn't be tied, not even for a second. They were facing a dragon who loved puzzles and eating non-dragons. They gave him the rope and made the deal that if the dragon couldn't make a knot within an hour, then the dragon would need to let them pass through. To this day, the dragon is on its back, playing with the rope like a cat playing with string, trying to get a knot in it. Obligatory not the DM, but our party's DM gave us a magical, mysterious bag. When we opened it, we pulled out a turtle. We reach in again, thinking there must be something else to this bag. We pull out a rabbit, still thinking there must be something else, something more meaningful to this item. We reach in again, and pull out a 9 featuring tall deer. It really was just a backpack that lets you pull out random animals. My bard proceeds to use speak with animals, then charms the deer to let us ride him. We named him Preston, and he's been our ridiculously massive means of transportation ever since. Rod of Irony was a fishing rod that you could only find by fishing it up. Using it only fished up more rods of irony, used them for firewood. I'd become a traveling fishing rod salesman. They found a wand that creates a random and unique lock that incorporates itself into the substance it's used on. So it might make a suspicious recess in a stone wall or a brass-plated keyhole on a wooden door. If probed with lockpicks, you would encounter moving tumblers or some other appropriate but unique locking mechanism. The lock was still completely non-functional though. It didn't magically create a compartment, it just made a lock. Even if you used it on a desk drawer, it never made a latch or bolt. So the drawer would open perfectly fine, while having a useless metal cylinder with tumblers that weren't connected to anything. If you successfully picked the lock, it always felt like a real lock despite lacking the physical pieces. It would make a soft chiming noise and the lock would evaporate. The wand was a training tool used by a famous locksmith to challenge himself and his students. It had no practical application at all outside of that profession. It ended up being used by the druid, who had ranks in use magic device. Don't ask, to constantly mess with the rogue. The druid would take every opportunity to wild shape into a small critter good for scouting and then place fake locks anywhere the rogue might conceivably try to use the search skill. The rogue's increasing paranoia whenever he found a lock and his overblown promises of vengeance every time a random hole in a floorboard wasted a minute of his time and chimed at him was a pretty good gag. It turned a little sour when the druid made an extra lock on an honest to goodness treasure chest. The rogue rolled a natural 20 to pick the first lock and got a chiming noise. Then he rolled a 3 and triggered an energy draining trap that permanently lost him 5 HP. After that, the rogue stole every wand the druid had in the middle of the night and threw them all into a bottomless pit in the Underdark. This is a wonderful story. I had a magical red rubber duck. Gave it to the party as a joke item because they kept asking for weird crap. Not one of them chose to identify it. It was an artifact level rubber duck. Once it was part of your inventory, it would never leave unless it wanted to. It had wisdom and intelligence of 28, sentience and could be attuned. Nobody learned that it was probably the most powerful item in my game. My party has been carrying around a wand of disguise self they found in a magic store bargain bin for over a year, and hasn't used it yet, except that's not actually what it is, hence why it was in the bargain bin. It's actually a wand of disguise elf, which once a day can summon an incorporeal elven servant to carry out a simple task for you. I was so happy with myself for coming up with that one, and so sad they've never even tried to use it, so the pun goes unheard forever. My infamous horn of resounding quacks was a hit. Summoned any duck within a half-mile radius of the person using it. The party never went hungry after that. Poor ducks XD. If you're an evil DM, you can get them used to it so they never bring food anymore and then put them in a duckless place. Have fun starving. Boys XD. Not me as a DM, but early in 3 days my friend's elder brother was deeming a game for my friends, my sister and me. One of the items we got was rolled on the random table was a gust of wind fan. It was exactly what it sounds like. Wave it, creates a powerful enough gust of wind to propel a boat and possibly rips itself to tatters. Threw it in the pack and forgot about it. A few sessions later we're defending a town from waves of invaders. The final boss is a cyclops or an etin or something. Big bruiser. We see it approaching with enough time to prepare for its arrival. My sister asks us to all use our healing potions, then give her the glass vials, which we do. Then she turns to the DM and calmly explains how she takes the vials with her upper guard tower. She smashes and grinds them up, waits for an opportune time, then uses the fan to blow a gust of powdered glass particles into the etin's eyes. The look on this man's face, a cross between holy crap that's awesome, I am so happy a story like this is in my campaign world now, and frick, this boss was supposed to be difficult. And frick, this boss was supposed to be difficult. My teammate and I got stuck in a rock that was actually a portal to another dimension with a huge monster. The DM's fiance used his shotgun to shatter the rock, releasing me and my teammate and destroying the portal in the process. Out of spite, the DM never told us what we were actually going to fight. In a game I am in currently, our DM gave us a flask of endless water. It can produce water in a trickle, a flood, or deluge that shoots 30 gallons of water in one turn. Our cleric has just fallen from a bridge over a chasm, and through clever bullshitting our sorcerer has managed to catch the falling cleric with a web spell. As we are all racking our brains to figure out a way to save them, Our cleric pulls out the flask and uses the water cannon mode to propel herself back onto the bridge using the web strands as a fulcrum. God dang nerds. Once my party got a huge beautiful magic sword which was improperly identified as a sword of ogre slaying. Instead, it was a cursed sword of ogre slaying. Whoever wielded it would only be able to yell ogre at things. Several adventures later they were attempting to catch a thief who was evading them. They came up with the brilliant idea of setting the sword as bait and just going about their business. Sure enough, some time later they heard ogre ring out through the town and they caught him without consequence. Amazing. Not while I was deeming, but my favorite useless magic item to this day is the Boots of Quickstep. Once per turn, you may click your heels as an action to gain an action. It resulted in my character beginning each of his turns clicking his heels. It was marvelous. Something true strike. Once have my party a magic spoon. It emitted a terrible aura of dark illusion magic and merely holding it filled layers with a sense of dread from its sheer chaotic energy. Its in-game abilities. It worked like a fork instead of a spoon. Arcane Spork of +5 anxiety. A ring of invisibility. Except by reading the fine print you understand that the ring itself turns invisible when you put it on and nothing else. They eventually sold it as a novelty to a traveling merchant. Well, it is a cute little gadget if you're into that stuff XD. Was playing a campaign on a tropical island type of place and an enemy knocked my weapon off a cliff, so I used a coconut as an improvised weapon. Crit with that thing 4 times in a row and decided to keep it for last hitting people. Was a barbarian and the DM liked the coconut last hitting so much he had me keep track of the kills, and I eventually had a +3 coconut that on a crit would ricochet until it didn't kill something. So basically he gave me a coconut of great potential. Sorry that I didn't write this from a DM's perspective. One of my one-shot campaigns had all players at 8th level, so I wanted to give them magical items but not too OP. So one of my monk players wanted a decanter of endless water, so I changed it to a homebrew version, where it didn't do the stream, fountain or geyser things, but instead it would pour endless alcoholic beverages. He could make the decanter fill with mojitos or margaritas or a Heineken, whatever, but only to get drunk. I thought it was harmless and fine, until I realized he selected the way of the drunken master and got drunk on command anywhere and everywhere. It was quite fun. I'm writing a new one-shot and I might take some ideas from this post too. A few odds and ends. A can of dehydrated water, just an empty can. A wand of kindling, just a stick to burn. A scroll of raised dead that makes a dead body float 6 inches off the ground. Ring of invisibility that turns only the ring invisible on use. Wand of raised dead could be useful if you need to cross dangerous terrain. Just surf on a dead body. The quill of penmanship and literacy allowed any creature to write their thoughts down in perfectly legible common. A rogue in the party was obsessed with capturing different creatures and monsters to learn their thoughts, only to find that most animals just wrote onomatopoeia versions of normal animal sounds like rah or quack. The party was sick of it and, in a later adventure, agreed to trade the quill to a half-orc bodyguard in exchange for information to ambush one of the campaign's villains. The half-orc would become a Thomas Paine-like thought leader, and his first 2 books were dedicated to the party. Not the DM, but the guy who used the item. I got a corncob pipe that made bubbles. Seriously, that's it. Just bubbles. They didn't put people to sleep. They didn't explode under flames. Nothing. Maybe it would make someone's eyes burn if they rubbed it in. We were assaulting a town and I was part of the crew taking the gatehouse. We barred the windows and doors and I put the pipe under the edge of the door and blew like I was inflating my own life raft in the ocean. Soon, bubbles were pouring out at the seams and the guards inside were panicking hardcore. One of them tripped on something and hurt himself on his own weapon. Once we opened the door, they came stumbling out and we cut them down while they were disoriented and distracted. Shortly thereafter, I traded the stupid pipe for various types of arrows at a Fletcher. I had that dang pipe for a long time and only used it that once. I would have pulled that thing out every time I made an investigation check. We were playing through a pre-made campaign. At one point, the players retrieve a magical artifact, which turns out to be an orb of controlled dragons. It does exactly what you would expect. In theory, it could have been very useful, except no dragons were showing up in the campaign, so it was basically useless. It did, however, led to a running gag where our most paranoid player kept attempting to control dragon random NPCs to see if they were secretly dragons in disguise. Running gags are the best though. I gave one of the characters a magical cloak that billows on command even if there's no wind. He used it to make dramatic entrances. OP said useless. This is a must-have for any self-respecting adventurer. My groups have a tradition of gifting players useless magic items with a birthday theme on their IRL birthday. Two of the favorites that I bestowed so far include a pair of boots that drop streamers everywhere he walked and a ring that turned the wearer's poop into chocolate cake, which could be eaten to regain 1 HP. My DM gave my character a glove that when the word bravo is said it emits the sound of applause. My friend's character used it to intentionally blow our cover infiltrating an enemy stronghold because he wanted to fight something. That is kind of sad. Epic, but sad. So a friend told me a story of his one time that fits the bill, I think. At some point in a homebrew game, the party gets their hands on a wand of magic farts. Point and fart. Literally. They used it to sneak around quite effectively, for a while. Then they had to deal with a cult with a secret mountain hideout. Traveled through a cave system until they reached the antechamber with 4 lit braziers around the altar. My friend, a wizard, uses the wand until he rolls a 1. The wand then springs a leak, spraying methane and slowly filling the chamber. Everyone bolts out as the wizard runs around the room before chucking the wand at the altar and following suit. They get out just in time to seal the entrance and blow off the top of the mountain. Literally, they were blinded and deafened for 3 turns each. We were playing a campaign with custom items we all put in. They were reasonable, and someone put in a stuff that whenever someone used it, it turned the user into a potato. They could still move and turn themselves back, but that was about it. So we were in a dungeon that was rather small. Our 6 feet barbarian was angry that he had a debuff, but there was a small slit in the wall that I hid an item behind and our magic man went poof and rolled into the slit and got a key for a chest at the end of the dungeon. So yeah. He turned himself into a potato. Funniest crap I've ever seen. Our GM gave to us an item which was the head of an ancient goblin king. This severed head had the power to give good advices to us, but they were completely unrelated to the question. What should we do to kill the dragon? Remember to wash your hand after using the bathroom. A magic shield which can cast Spare the Dying but only if you shield bash the person. As an improvised weapon it's a 1d4 with proficiency. One day they might summon Find with a negative proficiency enough where it doesn't just kill anyone. I wasn't the DM, but the DM of one of my favorite campaigns I've ever played gave me an item called the Book of Misspells. As you would expect, it was a book of various level spells that I could use without any restrictions other than I could only use them once a day. However, every spell was not what was actually written in the book. For example, the extremely powerful wish spell actually turned out to be wash. I first found the book calling out to my sorcerer character from deep in a forest, and one of my companions followed me in to make sure I stayed safe. When I found the book, it exuded magical energy, but the cover had no name written on it. I tried the message spell on my companion next to me to be safe. He stared at me uncomfortably as he was given a massage instead. Not the DM, but the player. Early in a Pathfinder campaign, we came across a robe of bones. Our GM loves to monkey paw items, so when he told us this robe had skeletons printed on it, and if we peeled them off, we'd summon skeleton warriors, we were skeptical they'd definitely fight on our side. Anyway, we were level 3 at the time, so the skeleton warriors were going to be summoned at level 3. As a druid, I was the party's designated summoner, and the robe was given to me. Flash forward several real-life months, and we're in a battle at level 16. I decide to finally summon those skeletons for the first time. GM, you still have that? Me, yeah. GM, why haven't you used it? Me, we were scared of the skeletons. GM, what? Why? Me, we weren't sure they'd immediately start attacking us. GM, well, they will fight on your side. But why are you using it now they're summoned at level 3? You're fighting level 16 enemies now. Me, because at level 16, I'm not scared of them hitting me. As the fight progresses, our GM is mostly ignoring Boney and Skells, because they can only deal about 1 stroke for the damage our party can. Skells gets killed in collateral splash damage, though, but Boney keeps hanging on. I'm rolling super luckily on his turn. He never misses an attack. He's only doing about 1/5 damage, but he just can't seem to miss. He ends up getting a kill, helps flank enemies for our melee fighters, and survives the whole battle. 13 levels past his prime. Belt of teleportation that only transported the belt and the pants of the wearer to an unoccupied location within 60 featuring of the user. I put it in as a gag, but the players started using it to startle opponents by teleporting pants just above them. The shenanigans increased when they discovered the belt also teleported whatever was in the pants pockets. Oh, that sounds actually useful, if you put something explosive or so in the pockets, or some kind of powder. I had a recurring gnome character that sold several gag magic items intended to be used as pranks, including Ring of Invisibility. It's just invisible. It doesn't do anything when you put it on, and since it's invisible it doesn't even serve the purpose of being ornamental. Never burning torch. A torch that absolutely, positively does not light. It's also too lightweight to use as a club. Amulet of Spell Turning. Literally all it does is spell the word turning out loud when activated. In common. In the voice of Gilbert Gottfried. Bag of Molding. A bag that causes mold to grow on anything placed within it. Oil of Slipperylessness. Oil that is no more slippery than water. Lying carpet. A carpet that always replies to your questions with lies. The drawback is that the carpet is sentient, so it's entirely capable of unintentionally telling the truth. Ring of Infinite Wishes. The only thing you can wish for is more wishes. Invisible hard objects are great though. You just drop them into a machine, or in the case of a ring work them around a cog tooth, and then laugh as people absolutely fail to understand why their crap doesn't work. They haven't figured out how to use it yet, but I gave my party a jar of kraken bait, full of rancid fish magically enchanted to attract a giant octopus when thrown in the water. The only problem? The jar is also cursed, and whoever possesses the jar loses the ability to open any door or containers that require any sort of twisting motion. They can't open it. This is what you get for seriously considering buying the ring that turns you into a wearer crocodile and giving the DM a how the frick do I balance this heart attack. And the best part? They never stop to ask if the jar is even a twist top. It's not. They just assumed they couldn't open it. When one of my players found a magic ring in the wreckage of a burnt wagon, he provisionally identified it as a ring of invulnerability. He spends most of the rest of the session swanning about like he's invincible until he is confronted by a veritable army of goblins. Combat immediately ensues and to his surprise he is quickly felled by javelins and scimitars. As he lays there bleeding out in the dirt he notices that the ring is completely undamaged. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.